Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is actually inspired by one of my subscribers who mentioned that she would love to see a video kind of talking about the differences between the ages and groups of foster children. I know this is definitely a big conversation topic. I know when you're becoming a foster parent, one of your biggest questions is what kind of children do I want to foster? You know, what ages do I want? What genders do I want? And those kinds of things. So I thought it would be good to make a video just talking about the differences between the age groups, the pros and cons of each, and just kind of giving you guys a little bit of an overview from my experience, both personally and then talking with all the different foster parents that I know, and just kind of give you guys a little bit of an idea. I would like to preface this video saying that all kids are different. Things vary by location and by families and by experiences, so this is by no means a hard and fast kind of thing, but this is just some trends I've noticed in these different age groups and things I think you should consider. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. First, we have infants. I'm going to go all the way from infants to toddlers and preschoolers to school age to teenagers. We're going to talk about all of it. So starting with infants, 0 to 2, this is a very popular age range, and that's not to say to discourage you. I know a lot of agencies try to discourage people from taking babies, mostly because they are desperate for homes for older children, of course. But if you really think you want to be a baby home, don't be discouraged. Definitely find an agency or go through CPS where they will license you for what you want, because I will tell you there is a need for infants as well. With the drug addictions especially, there's so many kids who are being born on drugs and automatically coming into CPS care, and there's a need for that. So don't be discouraged if you think you're not going to get a baby if that's what you want. That being said, be open to different age ranges, because you might be watching this video going, man, I didn't think about that. Maybe I'd be better suited for this age. So watch this with an open mind would be my advice. So with babies, there's a couple things to consider. First, babies require a lot of stuff. So it's a lot of upfront expenses especially. You know, you've got cribs and changing tables and diaper bags and swings and play mats and all these things. Babies require just a lot of stuff. So if you're thinking about taking a baby, think about that. It's going to be a lot of upfront expense. You're going to have a lot of stuff in your house and around your house if and when you have a child. It's also a lot of expense when you have them. You get a stipend to help cover some of that stuff, but formula is expensive. Diapers are expensive. Getting new clothing every few months when they grow is expensive. So I would say babies are probably the most expensive age range, and they require the most stuff and upfront expenses, not to mention daycare. Hopefully you're in an area where daycare is covered. But that's also something to consider. What if a daycare doesn't have an opening? What if your kid's sick and can't go to daycare? What are you going to do? These are things you really have to consider with those younger ages. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about infants. Now, the good thing about infants is, of course, they're young and cuddly. If you adopt them, you're going to get to see them grow through their whole life. They're really too young to remember too much about their old life. So they'll usually adjust fairly well to you, and they'll know you and start seeing you as their caregiver, as their mom or dad. And, that's kind of the benefit of infants, I feel like, having the young. And also just the baby stage can be fun. They're cuddly, they're little, they're learning so many things and so many milestones. And I think that's what draws a lot of people to them. And of course, they're not old enough to talk back yet and all of that. So sometimes people, I feel like, are drawn to babies for that reason. That being said, definitely keep in mind with babies, you also have lots of crying. A lot of these babies are coming in drug addicted or having been neglected, which can cause both developmental problems as well as, colic and drug withdrawal and all these things that can cause some really hard behaviors when you're a caregiver. Lots of crying, very irritable, maybe they don't sleep well. So that's one thing you have to consider if you're going to have an infant. Will you survive well on little sleep? Are you able to handle, crying all day or having to feed them all the time? And, babies are a lot of work. They're a lot of fun, but they're also a lot of work. So definitely keep that in mind if you're considering infants. The next stage I want to talk about is toddlers and preschoolers. So toddlers and preschoolers are also a very fun age. They're a little bit older. They start playing with toys more. They start talking to you more. They may attend a preschool or a daycare and start learning some of their letters and their shapes and that kind of thing. So it's a very fun age to be around. But just like with infants, you also have to deal with things like crying. Toddlers are going to have tantrums, especially, children in foster care. They're going to have traumatic behaviors from having been removed from their family. They're going to be upset about that. They're not going to fully understand. In fact, toddlers are considered one of the worst ages to adopt, not because they're not wonderful, but they're old enough to recognize that they're no longer in their old home, but they're too young to really grasp what's going on. So then they have just all of these toddler behaviors going everywhere. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about adopting or fostering a toddler. You know, they're going to have all those emotions raging, and you need to think about if you're the kind of person who's going to be good with disciplining and handling and loving on, you know, a toddler who's really struggling. So those are some things to consider with toddlers. Same thing with babies. You're going to have a lot of toys and things around your home, not as much of the baby gear, but definitely still some stuff, and definitely still some expenses with toddlers as well. Like I said, if they're young enough, they may have to go to daycare and that kind of thing. Once you get over the preschool range, then you really have the school-age children. You know, you have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you know, those kids who are going into elementary school. And this age, I think, is such a fun age because they're fully able to have conversations with you. They still love to play. They're still kids. You know, they go to school during the day, which can be a big help, both financially and, you know, for working parents. So they'll go to school, and that's something you have to consider too with school age. You know, are you willing to work on homework? Do you want to be able to set up chores? How comfortable are you parenting an older child? You know, you're going to have those more difficult conversations about bio parents and what's going on, and explaining things a little bit more to them because those children are older and they understand more what's going on with them, and they need to have those conversations, and they can still have a lot of those trauma triggered behaviors. You know, they still may have a lot of meltdowns. Some of them may be regressed, you know, in their age. And just like toddlers, they're still going to want to have some toys around. You're still going to need to buy some things for them. Once again, not as much as the baby age, but still you're going to have some expenses, some things to consider. And that's just kind of how it is with school age. You may need to still have a booster seat in your car, that kind of thing. But it is also a really fun age, like I said. Then you have like preteens and younger teenagers. And, you know, people, I feel like there's a stigma of like, oh, we don't want a teenager. But I've met so many single foster moms and other just foster parents and couples that have just loved taking teenagers. A lot of them like accidentally got a teenager like as part of a sibling group, or like they took it as an emergency placement, and then they ended up loving it and became like teenage foster parents. So it may not sound like something that's fun, but there's a lot of benefits to having a teenager or a preteen. You know, they're more independent, so you're able to possibly leave them at home longer. They're able to help around the house more, help with meal planning, that kind of thing. They're a little bit more independent in their schoolwork, hopefully. You know, they might be taking a part-time job, learning how to drive. They have friends and groupings, and it can be a fun stage of parenting too. You know, they'll go and sit and watch a movie with you, or play a sport, or play a board game, and you know, these are all just things to consider. And I know that there is a bad stigma out there, but a lot of these teens are really great kids. And that's just something to consider, that there's nothing wrong with these children. You know, it's their parents who weren't able to care for them properly, and it had nothing to do with them whatsoever. So definitely keep that in mind and be open-minded about maybe taking an older kid or a sibling group. Some cons to teenagers is definitely, you know, you have some of the more teenage behaviors with dating or social media problems and that kind of thing that you'll have to deal with. But in general, they are less expensive and require a little bit less, hopefully, there's obviously exceptions, supervision and things like that. With older teens, these teens are going to be close to aging out, and I feel like they're kind of their own kind of category. Most of the time, these teens are, well, I won't even say most of the time, but a lot of times these teens are just looking for, you know, a place that they can call home, you know, before they're out in the world on their own. It's really hard for these kids who are aging out to have nobody. I mean, if you could just imagine yourself for a second, your 18-year-old self, if you were just going to get kicked out with no support, no money, nothing, you know, just suddenly thrown out into the world with no support at all and no one to fall back on, that's really scary. And I think if you can provide a home for those kids, that's amazing. And once again, they have all the same benefits as the other teens do. They're more independent. They might even be more grateful, more excited, more willing to accept a family at that time. So those are kinds of just my big overview and really just small snippets of each age group. Like I said, you can make separate videos on all of these that are so more detailed, but just to kind of give you an overview of maybe some things to consider when you're thinking about different age groups. If you foster different age groups that I mentioned and you think I left something out, definitely leave it in the comments below. I would love for these resources to continue to be used for different foster parents so they can help make informed decisions. If you're interested in me making a video more specifically about each age group and what you need and the behaviors and things to expect, definitely let me know, and I can get together with some other foster parents and get those resources out for you guys. Thank you again for watching. If you're new here, my name was Autumn Renee. I'm currently a foster mom of a 22-month-old little boy, and I'm in the process of adopting. I started this journey as a single foster mom. If you're interested in learning more about my experience with all of that, definitely check out my channel linked below and give this video a thumbs up. I'd love to have you subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye.